And I would say I probably, again, I would say I'm very impressionable. Maybe there's a lot of cons to that, but that's just kind of my personality. And one thing that was characteristic of growing up in Maryland, where we live right now, was that everything was centered around the masjid. This was the first time I ever heard of the concept of a masjid, of a community, and it was something I immediately fell in love with. And everything we did was kind of centered around and revolved around masjid life. So even if a bunch of us were just gonna go play football or like go watch a movie, it'd be like, let's meet up, pray, and then head out. And is this kind of the way this should be, or should I stop talking? Or okay. And I want to give in a plug in that by no means were we at all like religious or pious or anything like that. Even though life revolved around the masjid, sometimes it was we're all teenagers and we'd get into like people hate each other, people get into fights, so it's like, I hate you, I'm gonna kill you, but let's kill each other after Dhuhr Jamaat, inshallah. So that was like the context of how I grew up. Again, a very like a very big bubble where everything is kind of jolly and happy. And then I think in high school, maybe my eyes were a bit opened and I got a bit increasingly disillusioned from the masjid. The idea of like politics, like that was like rampant. The fact that every uncle is like shouting, the youth are the problem, the youth are the problem, or rather, because their grammar isn't the best, the youths is the problem. And it wasn't really, I would say, our fault. There was like no services. We had one really like ghetto imam who not to diss the imam, he's a very nice guy, but just couldn't relate well. And growing up, this is when I'm in high school now. A lot of my friends are in high school, and people are very different than they are when you meet them the first time when you're 11 and 12. So I became I wouldn't say I was ever disillusioned with the faith or the religion. Alhamdulillah, because I grew up kind of isolated, because I would say up until the age of 11, my whole development was just from my parents. And alhamdulillah, they did, I think, a good job looking back. So even though my friends were going through different crises and our masjid itself wasn't supportive, for me, it didn't personally affect me, but it always made me long for like, a very genuine community, a community that really does a lot. And, growing up, and even now at Yale, you hear of people who come from, very rich, powerful communities, the Adams Center in Virginia, communities in Chicago, communities in Texas, where there's like a real strength of community that provides for both the Muslim community and also, it has a reach that's much wider. So that was kind of my high school experience, and then I came to Yale, and I came in kind of with that mindset that I've grown up with a deep love for the religion. Alhamdulillah, I've been blessed to have a very good upbringing, in my opinion at least, but I never really had a great community. And so as any innocent, naive freshman coming in, you're like, let me join, I'm a Muslim, let me join the Muslim Students Association. And at that time, before anyone else was here, there wasn't any organization. It was the biggest disappointment, I would say. When I was a junior, we would tell our freshmen, and when I was a senior, we would tell the juniors that the current juniors, they were freshmen, and when I was seniors, that you should be very grateful that you have a good community, because when in our freshman year, there were a few brothers in my class, and then my older brother and a good friend of mine, and that was it. It was 5 of us. There were upperclassmen who existed but cared nothing about us. They there was like none of that brotherhood, sister, none of that thing that you would expect from a community. And I think at that point, like, you can become further disillusioned, or you can just kind of like reinvent the wheel. And for me, I would say one thing that growing up was always stressed was just the importance of prayer. And that was something that my dad would always emphasize. And my parents are pretty ordinary people. My dad lived or rather wildlife, I would say. But that's like the one message that he would always say, no matter what you're doing, just make sure you like don't miss your prayers. And even growing up, like I said, everything we would do would be situated around the masjid for prayer. So when I came, and some of you know these people, in my class there was myself, there's a guy named Salah, and in the class above there was my brother Osama, and then there was another guy named Faiz. So us four, I would say, were kind of in some ways like, we just made this commitment that everything we would do, the musalla was like our masjid. And so everything we did, we kind of revolved around just prayer. Yeah. And I think that that's something that personally for me was very helpful. Everyone has such busy schedules. Everyone's a gunner. Everyone's doing 10 different things. But for us, just to develop a good friendship, one, and then later to like kind of have a community that kind of revolved around this. It was really meaningful. We'd study in the libraries, and then we would come to pray. Then we'd go back to like prayer was like a break, and it was a break where we would just meet everyone, catch up, see how everyone's day is going. Same with dinner, same with like sports. Everything was just revolved around using the musalla as a place of prayer. And I think that's actually something deep. I was listening to something that Imam Majid says, and he says, those who pray together stay together. And I think that's really true. So then we became pretty involved in the MSA, and again, it wasn't. I think people say we did good things, or we would do a lot of events, but I think for me at least, the memories were just that we had like this culture where things revolved around the musalla, and everything that we did was pretty inclusive in my opinion, and very, very chill. There wasn't any expectation. Mm-hmm. And those were really my experiences as a student. Academically, I would say, again, because I'm coming in from a very small rural community, definitely, for me at least, there's this huge shock, and I would definitely say I came in with a huge inferiority complex, that I'm coming from the middle of nowhere, where half the students' modes of transportation is like tractors and stuff, and now you're coming to Yale, and people are much more serious. And I think my interest in medicine was always there. My mom's a doctor, and she was really inspiring to me growing up, and still is. But I would say I had a lot of interest. I wanted to study Arabic. I wanted to keep reading books, study history, and so I did DS my freshman year, and I think that was also a very pedagogical experience. It was a learning experience. Again, just how serious students are, and some of the backgrounds they're coming from, and just kind of what I guess maybe turned me off a little about Yale. There's a level of, I think, artificiality in some of the interactions that at least I was making with students. And so I remember after the first DS lecture, they were always in Whitney Humanities Center, and then everyone would go to TD together for lunch. And like the first week I was sitting next to someone, and I was like, it was just a simple conversation, what are you having for lunch? And then he looks at me like one of those quasi-intellectual people, and he's like, what is lunch? Like one of those stupid, nonsensical statements. And I was like, I'm done with this. I'm done with these people. And those were the type of discussions that fine, I guess in section everyone's like trying to impress professors, but like even outside of section, like people are having toga parties, people are like, doing this type of junk, and maybe it's not junk. Maybe the problem is in me. That's also very possible, that everyone else is right and there's something odd about me. And so I did DS. That was also wonderful. Maybe another class that I think was really transformative was I was accepted in the Faith and Globalization course, which was taught by Tony Blair, and that was personally for me pretty powerful. You have this figure who personally I think is like a war criminal, but everyone is like lauding him, and he's this celebrity figure at Yale. And I came in again, and it was a moment of just disillusionment. Yale's a liberal campus. People are you would think anti-war, but everyone dresses up. Everyone dressed up to this class in like really really fancy clothes, and they're just trying to schmooze with Tony Blair, and he loved it. That's what he would just. I guess that's what he was there for. But I would always ask, like, I think I was the only person who asked like tough questions. And I took it with Naveed. And I think me, Naveed, and there was a Muslim who graduated. Her name is Esteemed. We were the three Muslims. But even the Muslims, they didn't like ask any questions. So I would always raise my hand and I would ask him about Iraq or Gaza and stuff like that. And then there would be this big hush. And I didn't understand what was the big deal. And everyone was like, you shouldn't ask questions like that. You shouldn't ask questions like that. But those were my, I guess, academic experiences. And definitely it opened my eyes. I was able to study, do the pre-med track. And then I ended up majoring, like Zaina said, in Near Eastern languages. I got to study Arabic. I got to be abroad. That was kind of my Yale experience, both in terms of activities and what was important to me. And what was important to me was MSA, and just being with a good Muslim community. I thought that was important for me personally. And then academics, kind of juggling both a science workload. And I think I give the impression that I hate science and like I'm against it, and it's but I think personally I think it's quite fascinating, even though I don't give that vibe. But I would say I just have other interests as well. And Yale was fortunate of a blessing really that it allowed me to really study a lot of different disciplines.
Answer. So something I think that was highlighted, and I think preemptively I thought you would highlight it, was your dedication to the community, and just your idea that a community is really one of the central things in your life. So what makes you so committed to the community, and why do you think it's important for a community to be active?
So for me personally, I would say community was important first, just because growing up I didn't have a community, and my version of a community up until the age of 11 or 12 was something very I idealized. It was, like I said, a community of three real Muslim personalities: my family, the Arab family, and Hakeem. And Hakeem doesn't really count. And then growing up, it's something you realize that my community at home, and it's very sincere people. It's very good people. I think most people come from these. It's a very ethnic based community. Everyone's Desi. Everyone's a doctor. Everyone's kind of concerned about getting the next Benz or getting the next 10,000 square foot home or whatever like that. That's like the mindset. There isn't any real impetus to make it into a transformative community that can do a lot of good. And just from my friends who I think were going through different episodes in their lives, and seeing how the community itself was not able to perform and not able to live up to the people it's supposed to be in charge of, which is the community itself. Like, that was not the ideal. Even though I grew up with this romanticized notion, I felt like that ideal was probably more true to what Islam is, like just people coming together. And so at Yale, you really get that opportunity to have a authentic experience where, like, even look at the people here, we're all from very, very different backgrounds. And I think that's something that should be celebrated, because I think once we leave and we're part of, communities, they won't have this type of dynamic nature to it. Sadly, I think most of us will kind of revert to kind of those communities from home where it's where they do a lot of things, but I think they do have problems in like just speaking the same language or having a imam who's accessible for everyone, or something that empowers women. I think our community is quite backward in that sense. But because I had these values instilled in me from my folks, to me personally, the MSA was something that I thought I could contribute to, and it was just again, not doing anything, but just kind of creating this culture of kind of openness, and a culture where the hub of activity is in the musalla. And so when I came my freshman year, no one used it, and so we just started using it. And I think a really good memory, now that I've graduated, like my student experiences are just memories. But a really good memory is like, without really advocating for anything, without ever like calling anyone or making it a priority, like especially by junior year and senior year, like just naturally the Musalla was kind of evolved into this hub that everyone just came to. And I think Rakib mentioned this when he was giving his senior reflection, that like you can walk in at any time and there's people studying there, or and I would say 80% of what we do in the Musalla is probably not even that religious. It's just like people hanging out, people watching videos, people arguing, people throwing things around, playing Scrabble, whatever. And I think all of that is great. And I think the MSA culture itself is not really so much religious based as community based. And we do so many things that personally I think are wonderful. The fact that we have halal dinners together. The fact that we people sleep in the musalla together, or
in a halal way.
In a halal way, yeah. That
Still illegal.
That news came out the wrong way. The fact that the guys like play basketball every week, all of this is really good. But that's not what I think makes us unique. I think our religion does give us this platform and this framework where something like prayer is emphasized, and the musalla is like, I think, an ideal place that lets us have these social interactions, but also kind of meet our religious obligations and grow as a community. So that's why the community was important to me. And I think now that, like, for me, I guess the next step is moving on and kind of leaving this community. When I think of like the community I hope to be a part of and the role I hope to play, it's definitely shaped by my experiences here as a student, something that's very inclusive, something that kind of is based on just everyone feeling welcome, providing services that meet kind of every need or expectation that anyone of any kind of religious practice can kind of experience and benefit from.
Good answer. Okay, this is going to be my last one. I'll turn it over to Orvai.
Keep going.
So, what would you, if going back, what would you change about your Yale experience, and then what would you recommend, like, the Muslims at Yale, what would you recommend them to do with their time here?
Sure. So I've thought a lot about this, actually, because one thing personally for me, and this was, and I think I've mentioned this to a few students, probably my biggest regret as an undergrad was that I have very academic-based regrets. I don't think I applied myself in the best way a student should. I think because I came in with this inferiority complex that these other students are much better than me, I settled for second best, and that wasn't my. I think I was a much better student in high school. I was like not a pretty impressive student in high school. And then I just settled for an A minus is okay. It's not an A, but an A minus is okay. A B plus is okay. It's not an A minus, but it's a B plus. These kind of like bad goals that you set, and especially when classes are increasingly difficult. I think for myself, what I now tell myself is like, yes, Yale is a very hard place. It's very difficult for all of us. But I think there's a certain arrogance in me that I'm a Yaley. I can try my best, and whatever happens, I'll be fine. But there's so many outlets, there's so many resources one can use to just get better help. And I never needed help as in high school. I could study enough. I could figure it out on my own. But the reality is, like, yes, there's difficult classes at Yale, but there's amazing resources that can help you along the way, whether it's a professor, whether it's TAs, whether it's tutors, all of that. And that humility was necessary for me. And again, also non-academic, another regret, that was, I guess, an academic regret. I think another problem that happens, so I guess I invested a lot of time in the Muslim community, but there's only a limited amount of time that one has in a day. So if you're investing all of your time in the Muslim community, and if you're just focused on Muslims at Yale, you kind of miss like 99% of the people on campus. And I think when one is kind of so committed or invested in the Muslim community, it also leads to like this feeling of maybe self-righteousness. I'm doing the pious thing. All of these non-Muslims are just like, doing their own thing, but I'm doing the right thing by investing time in something in Muslims. And I think that's very unhealthy. I think I made a number of really good non-Muslim friends, and I still keep in touch with them. But there's no reason why that number could have been more. There's no reason why I couldn't spend more time in my college, for example, or be more involved in different organizations. And so, but to answer the second part of the question, one thing that I am very grateful for in some ways, and I think I would advise Muslims to do this, and in some ways this was kind of reflected in the khutbah earlier, but to me I think one thing that's really important is just having a very like making sure every relationship or every interaction you have with someone is something that there's no like ill will or no one's holding grudges. And so when I left, one thing that I was grateful for was that I don't think I offended or hurt anyone, and I think that's really powerful, because I think that personally that's something I'm quite glad about, because everyone moves on, right, and everyone is here to do wonderful things. And so a lot of my one of my best friends is in Dubai right now, another is in Jordan, one's at Princeton, and people get scattered, people go on to different things, people get married, people are doing graduate work, lives are very different, but I'm glad that the relationships that I made were very positive. One thing that I do that might be might be a bit weird, but I do it. I like to save emails that I get from people, and so in my my inbox, I have a bunch of folders from like a lot of different people, a lot of people who are personally meaningful and important to me, and it's very maybe it's a bit sappy, but it's nice to, I think, read emails from your freshman year that you had with someone who's now a completely different continent away, and you only like have a month in a month you only get to Skype with him once or something, or just our old MSA board emails of like just like people like arguing and yelling, all that stuff. Like it's really fun, I think, to look back at that and to think that one had a good time. It's like a personal feeling of contentment. That would be my advice. I think everyone is so focused, and everyone has such admirable goals for what they want to do with themselves and in their lives. But it is important, I think, to kind of not forget about others that are important.
Go ahead.
You keep going. These are great questions, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to think of another question. All right, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
So they ask this at every med school interview. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
This would be rehearsed, man.
Yeah, hopefully this one won't. Well, this is more applicable in Muslim contexts. I think so. Inshallah, in a few months I'll be starting med school, and alhamdulillah, thank you for everyone who made duas for me. That was very necessary. The fact that you made that dua box, I kept pushing you to make it so people would make duas. If people came to the khutbah I gave last semester with all about the importance of making dua for others, and I had very selfish reasons, but thank you really for everyone who made prayers. So for myself personally, inshallah, I hope to be a physician. And you asked in 10 years. I just want to make one small insertion. When I think you asked this question to Osama at his chai, he said something like, I only think 1 year in advance. So, and then people were like, this guy's a bit creepy. So I mean, no one knows what can happen in 10 years. I think that's the point Osama was trying to say. But I think ideally, I think my interests, like I said, are very much with the community. And even I think in terms of medicine, I think my interests are very much in community health, urban health. When I was an undergrad, I was involved in a number of organizations that just worked in the inner city. When I was in Jordan, I was teaching English at a refugee camp, and so I'm very just personally fascinated. Fascinated isn't the right word, but I think there is kind of a social activist bent in me that people in poverty, people who have people to whom the cards are kind of stacked against, they're kind of neglected in society, and especially their health profiles are really, really, really bad. And so something that, again, God knows what will happen in the future, but I think something that kind of combines some of these interests and passions in both medicine and public health and advocacy is maybe being the director of like an inner city clinic, maybe being a director of a city's public health department of health, those type of avenues. Inshallah, I hope so. Yeah, I have to be part of a community, definitely.
I think one of the things I admire the most about you, like since junior year, is your ability to be a mentor to different individuals, and like coming back, you've really taken that on. And I was wondering if you could speak to how you maintain those mentorship relationships, and like how you sustain them, and looking forward to next year when you won't be here, how do you make sure that you're still available as a resource, and what are you planning to do with that? Sorry.
He hasn't planned to get out. He's out of here.
It's kind of a selfish question too, because it's one of the things I've been thinking a lot about, because I'm graduating soon.
Right.
And I'm like, so I was wondering if you had any insight you might want to share.
Sure. So I would say that who I was freshman and sophomore year is very different than I think who I was junior, senior year, and now. And I don't think anyone, except you would know you were your sophomore year, but I don't think you, it was your first year, I don't think you could see a difference between.
I could.
Okay, fine, you could. I would say freshman, sophomore year, Umar was someone who I think was very artificial. I think I was involved in both of those years I was really involved. I was the social chair of the MSA at that time, and nothing was more important than like connecting with people and just making sure everyone's having a good time. But personally, I felt that those were very artificial. It was like literally in my mind, I would have a checklist that I have to just salam maybe 100 people at Jummah, and once that's done, then that's good, and I've kind of like I've been a good mentor. I think that's all fake. And I think junior year and sophomore year, I think what was more important for me was to not really be so much outgoing, but just kind of be a resource in the way that kind of do my own thing, and whenever anyone had a question or anyone had a concern, just always be available, rather than being, kind of proactive and going out, can I help you, or how's everything going? Just kind of have more authentic relationships. And I think I just and so I guess maybe the number of people that I saw that I would interact with on a personal basis from freshman, sophomore year, maybe that really shrunk junior and senior year. But I think that those relationships were much more authentic, and I think it was nothing more than just giving one's time. I think here we're so and I guess you have to be selfish about time, because everyone does have career plans, grades, all these real things that they're worrying about. But I think for me at least, opportunities to meet communally were ones that I really took advantage of. So again, coming to the musalla for prayers, or just having meals, like very simple things that you just kind of check up on. And it's not even so much, I don't think people really need advice, and I think people just need honest friends. And that's something that I try to do as a student. Or one thing that I always do and try to tell like the upperclassmen is like, you should see your role as like a brother and a sister to everyone who's below you. Because that's like we didn't have that when it was our freshman year. We were kind of fending for ourselves. And I guess now leaving, I guess one reality is that obviously like the physical interactions are, they're going to be less. Like they're not going to be present. That's like a blunt reality. But but I think the way that I've maintained relationships even now, like I said, from my own class, one of my best friends, Salah, is in Kuwait right now. Another friend is in Jordan. Nafiz, Osama's in Chicago. But like, you just find some time that works, and you really cherish and value that time. Once whether it's once a week or once a month, the people who are important, I think, in your life. I don't think it makes sense to just say, okay, these were 4 years, now we're done. I think it is important to have regular checkups, and you kind of really value those. That's why, for me at least, I like to have all the emails saved from people who are personally important to me, because it reminds you that this wasn't just for 4 years, and it is important to keep staying in touch.
Do you have any questions?
Listen. Yeah.
I mean, it has been going all very ideal and.
Yeah. Bring it down.
What I would say might sound a bit ugly. So what I've heard from so what we are used to having here at Yale is sometimes just extremely charged, even among the Muslims, extremely charged, extremely intellectually pretentious conversations where we're constantly trying to prove our intellectual worth to each other, and it's very normal to have those conversations here, and it becomes the norm after a certain point. And I heard from a graduate of Yale a couple of years ago that she simply found non-Ivy graduates not intellectual enough to have a conversation with, and that she was struggling after graduating. And I don't agree with that sentiment, but I do definitely feel like I am being pulled into this kind of discourse where I require a certain level of knowledge and intelligence from the person who I'm talking to in a very pretentious way. And I'm just wondering if this happened to you too, how you interacted. That classic article about the Ivy graduate who couldn't speak to the plumber because he simply had forgotten to relate to normal ordinary people. So I was wondering if that happened to you, how that went.
So I think it's a very good question.
Can I just preface that with one story? Sure. Okay. I think it's a great question. I love the story, and I send that article around to people all the time. And I cannot take credit for this story, either the praise or the blame. You can pass it off to my amazing wife, Lisa. She said that. So we got very close with Umar when he was here, because he was very involved, and we had just arrived here. And then when Umar came back, he got back in Ramadan before most people had arrived, and the conversation happened right over there one day after iftar. And Lisa went up to just have a normal social interaction with Umar. And because Umar had been in the deserts of Jordan, right? This guy had been cut off from civilization. He was in Khalwa, okay? He was just cut off, thinking great thoughts and reading great things and all of this stuff. And she was just my wife is very easygoing, very down to earth. She's totally anti-Ivy pretension. We didn't go to Ivy schools, right? And then she's having a conversation with Umar, and it was the opposite extreme. Umar was the one that's hi, how are you? I've been in the desert for 6 months. I can't talk to people. And she was look, you better get back up to speed soon, man, because those freshmen and new people are arriving in 2 weeks. So, but I mean, it was a very sweet and kind of encounter, whereas this guy gone to the other end of the world, into a different place. And so, I had to say that story. Sorry.
I think you're right. I think that's a wonderful story. Thank you. I think you're definitely right, Husna. I think one reason why I don't think I fell too much into that bubble was that I hung out with people who always normalized me. They were a very normal group of people, and that's one thing why I really like our Muslim community. Yes, everyone is quite brilliant, and mashallah, people are gifted in so many different ways, but we don't actually flaunt that to others. Going to Aladdin for 3 hours would be so fun for, I think, all of us, at least to me and a few others, and just talking about the most random, the most mundane things, and then I guess because also in terms of what I was involved in, because I was involved in a lot of community work, and definitely being abroad, you meet people who are just from very different walks of life, and so definitely I guess there is this one hat that I can wear where I would dress very very Ivy style and talk impressively and try to impress people. But at least the people that I hung out with and the people whose company I enjoyed, they were very normalizing people. But I think one thing that is true, it is. I think some of the people we meet in this room, I think are probably some of the most impressive people that we'll meet in our lives. I think that is true. People are not that I'll say that they're better or that they're more, but I think there is something in the conversations that you have and the way people think about different things that is truly, that is, I think, something unique, at least in my opinion. Yeah, yes.
What are you most excited about in the coming year, in the coming years? Sort of starting a new chapter of your life.
Yeah, so I guess because for me it's been 2 years after graduating, I'm personally very excited to get back in. This might sound a bit nerdy, but I'm excited to be a student again. And even here, sometimes when it was a quiet day, I would just like leave and attend a lecture because it was like, I don't know, that's a bit weird, but I really miss being a student, especially because I don't think I did my best as a student, and so I'm actually quite excited to be a student again. And I think because I kind of have a goal in my mind of who I want to be, or the type of there is some sort of direction or compass, and I would say for me at least, it was very helpful and instructive. This probably is necessary to just take some time after graduating. I'm personally a big proponent of that, and a lot of my friends, my brother, a lot of people have done other things. I don't like using the term taking time off, even though that's what everyone says, and I have to keep correcting myself to say it because it seems like you're doing nothing, just like existing with nothing and just like taking space. But like one of my probably best friends, his name is Fives. Now he's at Princeton, and up until maybe second semester of his senior year, he was he graduated as an MB&B major, but I think he hated medicine, he hated science, he had no desire to do it, and then when he graduated, he went abroad, and now he's doing Islamic studies. I think it's helpful to kind of just take a breath of fresh air, ask yourself, what am I doing, and why am I doing what I'm doing, and it gives you that time to just ask personal questions. Yeah.
What was the saddest or the most traumatic or most disturbing event that happened to someone you know or to you personally? Why not?
What's the point that you're talking?
Because, it's mastermind his life, right?
He has a fear of interviews, especially when people ask really depressing questions.
I feel like while you're dealt no.
Right now.
Someone you know.
Are there other questions?
That is not
I second that.
Yeah, sure.
Second that question.
What's your happiest?
Well,
let's see. Let's remember. I had a really good senior banquet. That was very, very nice. It was like a very good, just a culminating experience. And I guess all my answers have kind of been very like rosy and stuff, and I apologize. But it was a good way to end the year. I mean, personally for myself, I had no idea what I was doing, and I was kind of like in this mental frenzy senior year. But because I wanted to go abroad, and I didn't know what I was doing the year after, and I hadn't taken MCATs. All these like real world things were definitely on my mind. But I think the way senior year ended, it was very nice. And then we had a spring fling, and Lupe performed, and it was just like a very, very authentic way to end. Yeah.
since you want to talk less idealistically and more real,
Please.
of course MSA at Yale is great, but I was wondering if you could give us some words on where you want to see the MSA in a couple of years, or where are areas of growth that we
Sure. I don't think the MSA needs to have its own center or space. Like, we don't need to have like a Muslim SIFCA or Muslim STM. I think though, and I think personally the MSA is doing the most it can, and there's only like, in all honesty, there's only a certain limited amount one can ask of students, because the fact that the MSA is and the fact that the board is all essentially volunteers who are sacrificing crucial hours of their time and literally trying to put on a show every year that competes with the level of STM and Hillel, and we're all students. I think the MSA is doing personally fine. I think the response and the onus and the burden is kind of more on alums rather than the organization itself. I think it's a bit disappointing that the Yale Muslim alums who have graduated and have become established themselves are not, because I don't think they saw what the MSA was the way we've seen it. They don't have that type of memory. They don't have those type of experiences or reflection. But I think it's more. I think once the alumni community is kind of galvanized, and inshallah that's something I guess I hope to be a bit more involved in. Then I think like the collaboration between what the MSA is currently doing and what the alumni can do through definitely through a lot of financial contributions and just assistance. You can have like a wonderful program like the Umar scholarship can be like really enhanced, and we had like talked about just summer abroad scholarships and opportunities that which is very easy. There's people who are like rolling in cash right now, but for some reason it's that outreach hasn't come, and inshallah, let's see what the next few years hold. I think though, I personally am, I always tip my hat off to anyone who invests time in the MSA community because of just the sheer amount of work that it takes to pull on that production, and the fact that most of the work, if not all of the work, is kind of behind the scenes, and there's hours that no one notices and they go completely unappreciated. But just being on the board and knowing the realities and knowing the amount of work that board members, sincere board members put, I think the MSA should just keep going at the trajectory it's going. Yes.
Two-part question. One, after being so involved with the chaplain's office, with so much delicious snacks and stuff, how are you so, mashallah, in good shape?
You would have said me, that's why.
That was fast. And two, perhaps like, speaking of doing work behind the scenes and stuff, mashallah, you've been a PL and an older brother figure this year and before in so many ways, whether it's running with us after Fajr or leading Fajr very regularly and stuff. What parting advice would you have to give to a lot of us who are now going to fulfill that role for next year's class?
Yeah. I think one thing people should just be very confident about being a personality, be someone that someone else looks up to. And again, this maybe goes back to my idealized childhood where I looked up to Hakeem Olajuwon as this like role model. But I think that's what every freshman, every student is looking for. One of the realities is that there are very, very there's people who they play this Yale game and they they have that air of like confidence, but there's actually very, very few leaders. There's very few personalities who people look up to, and I think I would say it's important for everyone can be one. It doesn't really require anything. If you just normalize a situation that praying a Fajr Jamaat is a cool thing to do, and then together we'll run afterwards. If you just make that into something normal, then that's like really relatable to freshmen. I think I think sometimes because we get obsessed with our own work and our own schedules, we kind of forget others. I would just say be a personality, because if we aren't, if you aren't, then they'll find someone else. They'll find a different community, and then in some ways you lose a student when there's no real reason to. For your first question, I don't think I'm in that good shape. But when I was in Jordan, I think that was the first. It was a very regimented lifestyle. I think Fatima remembers, because she was there the second semester, and it was very normalizing to meet Fatima, because we were just living in a cave. And
Omar had a beard that hit his face. I was like, what happened to you?
And that's why it took me such a long time to readjust and properly talk to your wife. I just couldn't I couldn't talk in English. I couldn't even talk in Arabic, but so I just couldn't talk. But I guess it was just something we did quite regularly in Jordan, along with studies and all that stuff. Yeah.
Who are some of your role models when you were growing up?
Apart from.
Besides Hakeem Olajuwon.
Sure. So I think for me at least, aside from Hakeem, probably the most impressive people are probably people that none of us really know. Just ordinary people. I'm impressed by my parents. They're probably my first role models, first teachers. My mom is probably someone that I think is amazing, and my parents are very, very ordinary people. In fact, I think a few people have met them. We're all a very goofy family. It's like everyone's a clown. And I don't say that to be disrespectful to my parents or to clowns, but there's just a certain authenticity in those relationships. I'm impressed by my brothers. I think my older brother has a certain. He's a bit serious, but he has a certain professionalism that I hope I can kind of have, especially now that I'll be starting school and all of that. I think my younger brother has he has a wonderful heart. He also has he has the Quran perfect in his heart. That's a personal goal. And then there's just people, just the behind the scenes people. I'm not a big fan of celebrities or I think the ordinary people who people neglect, who people have no idea about. They're just personally inspiring. When I think there's a health clinic in Baltimore, I think, and there's someone who no one knows about, but just the fact that this individual does free service and does it just because that's what he feels his religion tells him to do. That's something that I find really, really inspiring. Those are my role models. They're not big people. Yeah, Rocky.
How have your friends changed you? I'm sure you met a lot of people who are very different from you, have maybe very even polar opposites from you, but you still are connected with them. How have you developed through your friends?
That's a great question. And the khutbah was actually a reflection on how I think I have personally changed because of the fact that there were friends in my life who were very, very critical. So in my junior year, I had the privilege of being one of Jonathan Edwards' esteemed kitchen managers, and and it was something that me and another Jay's Faiz, I've mentioned his name a number of times, we kind of co-led, and I think by February or March we were both fired because we did absolutely nothing, but I think probably the most transformative thing that happened to me as a student was it was the day before Harvard Yale, I think, or the day before everyone was going to head out for break, and we would just use the kitchen to just hang out. We would care less about anything else. We would just like, that was like our spot to just hang out. And it wasn't too selfish. We like had iftars there. We had suhoors there. So we abused it and let the Muslims abuse it. But what happened was, and like I said, freshman year, sophomore year was very different than junior year, senior year. And I think one reason was that right before break, they locked me in that room, and for like 3 hours they just yelled at me. And they, I don't think I've really told this story to anyone, and but that was really personally like something I needed to hear, and it was just calling out, which again you can just dismiss it, and you can be like, you can have this air that I'm right, they're wrong, and play this, this card of arrogance, or you can just like accept it and like see where they're coming from. To me, that was really profound, and that's, I think, why our friendship is quite strong. And I would say that's how I've learned from friends. That at the one level, everyone's very chill, and everyone hangs out. But when there is someone who isn't scared to just say what's on their mind, then you have a deeper appreciation for that person, that they care about you, so they're like, they're willing to call you out. I think something similar happened when I first started studying in Jordan, and I went to, and I mentioned this on Monday, I went to kind of memorize the Quran. That was like a personal goal throughout my life. And the first lesson, the first class, which I was so excited for, with this teacher, after I said what I had prepared, he was just like, Umar, you suck. Like, he just said it straight up. This was like a 5 out of 10. And again, that like bitter pill is something that like none of us ever hear. Like, we're all told, mashallah, you're wonderful, mashallah, you're great, mashallah, you're such a great person. But you don't become better until somebody kind of brings you down. And they're not really bringing you down, they're kind of trying to take you up by humbling you a bit. He also didn't say you suck. He was much nicer than that. But that's how I kind of.
You said something about almost meeting Hakeem.
Yes. So Hakeem Olajuwon, for anyone who's interested, lives half his life, half a year, not half his life, half the year in Houston, Texas, and half the year in Amman, Jordan. So because he's like pretty committed to the religion, and he studies traditionally there. So when I went to Jordan, I took my Hakeem Olajuwon jersey with me, thinking that there might be a chance that if I visit enough mosques, maybe I'll just randomly meet him. And then slowly, I tried to ask people in the community where we were living if they knew which masjid he frequents. And so there were 3 that people kept going to, and they say he's always in the front row at Jummah. So I'd always come with my backpack. In that backpack was a jersey with like a pen with a Sharpie that he could sign. And I never saw him. Unfortunately, I never saw him. But I would have these really bizarre conversations with the Muwazzaf al-Aman, like the security agents, or like the people kind of overseeing the masjid. Like, and it would be in Arabic, like, Hal tara al shakhs tawil min Africa. Like, have you seen that tall black guy from Africa? And they would be like, what are you talking about? Like, and unfortunately I got burned like every single week. And so I never got to meet him, but I felt like he was there.
Inshallah, you'll get to it.
Inshallah. Last question.
Please.
Are you gonna visit?
Inshallah, definitely. This is so I was at Duke this past weekend, and inshallah, I think that's where I'll be matriculating. And it's a wonderful community. I got to meet their chaplain, and he kind of made me pose in front of their Muslim life sign, and
some were heartbroken.
and I didn't know what to say. He's like, could you stand for this picture? I didn't want to say no because that would be like disrespectful. And he's like, no, my kids want to take a picture with you. And so I was just like forced in this position. And so I think my heart is always here. I think it will always be the case.
Wait, what was your text message though? What was the quote in the text message you sent?
He didn't send it. Oh, did he send another one?
No, the one that you had.
No, that was from their chaplain trash talking to us. Yeah.
What was it?
I don't know.
He said that Umar's become a blue devil.
I mean, he's your chaplain now.
I think he is, but like I think grad life is a bit different. I think the undergrad experience here, the MSA experience as an undergrad, I don't think it can be replicated. And this is another thing for, I guess, all the undergrads who are here and who are and will be and have been involved in the MSA. In all honesty, I don't think there's a better MSA than this community. Osama's at Chicago, and they do great things by virtue of being in Chicago and it having a lot of resources, but their MSA doesn't compare. Duke's MSA, Abdullah was like, we have 600 students, so we do a plethora of events every single day. Their Jummah was like less than half of ours. They had pizza when we have like halal catered lunch. I mean, every community is different. I think this one is particularly special, and definitely I think the schedule will be a bit rigorous, but inshallah, I do intend to show my face once or twice, I hope.
Do we have any questions?
I just want to say we had catered iftar every night during
Rajat, do you want to close off?
No, I mean, thank you very much. This is, mashallah,
thank
such a pleasure to have you back, to have worked with you this year. And I don't mean to make this sound as sort of the finale, but I think this was a great chai. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for Umar for being very gracious with his time. He's been very busy this week, doing a lot of work, as always, mashallah. And so thank you very much. I have nothing else to add.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah, please.
Coming back was like honestly one of the greatest blessings. And I was so excited to come back and to have this opportunity, but I was also like really, really scared. And if anyone's seen the movie Mean Girls, there's this scene where all the girls are like in the gym or auditorium, and there's this one girl who's like everyone's giving their reflection, and there's this one girl who's like, I wish things were the way they used to be. I wish we could all bake cupcakes that have rainbows and all this junk, and then there's Damien in the back, and he shouts, "She doesn't even go here," and so I felt like I was that girl, because I was just so excited to be back, but I don't I assumed like MSA would do its own thing, so it was wonderful coming back. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you very much.
Just take one.